Oh, by gum. Yadadum, bum, 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 battleum, bum. Battleady. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Sorry it got pushed back, but seeing as I knew my sister was on MS Teams till 6:30, it didn't seem sensible to try and wrestle with that and then just have things keep going and get going wrong. Vision, I don't think paper cruisers would have fared well compared to hulls of steel, iron, and even balsa wood. You never know. It would have been very soggy, but paper boats surprise me every time how long they manage to stay afloat. As you say, paper hull plating is unlikely to set off the fuse of a shell, causing most hostile fire to pass straight through the ship as it would be. Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Hello, Peter Dawson. Hello, John South. Hello, Paul from Chicago. Hello, Sean Mack. Hello, Sadmiral. Hello, Don Khan. Hello. I have the strangest cough in the world at the moment, and I'm going to explain this. We have sort of tried to figure out, because every time I walk outside the house, I don't have a cough. If I'm in my bedroom, most of the time, if I've been talking for too long, I get a bit of a cough, but most of the time, as long as I have the window a bit open, I'm fine, I don't have a cough. When I wander into parts of the house which don't have the windows open but have the heating going full blast, I suddenly start coughing. And it's very dry hot air because we have a hot air heating system. So basically, I am also the only one in the house who doesn't use inhalers to keep my lungs artificially wide. So who knows what's going on, but if I cough at any point, please don't get too worried. It's a very strange scenario. Hello, Jess P. Ooh, there's all sorts of conversation. Never had Little Caesars going on here. Little Caesars. Hello, Jimmy Saver. I don't think I've seen before, so hello, Jimmy Saver. Alberzeski, hello. The guy named Dan, hello. Hello, Nautical Wolf. Hello, Trevor Ayton. Hello, DGV40. Hello, Martin Dark. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. Hello, Buckmere. Hello, George Crab. Haven't seen you in a while. Hello. Hello, Stefan Pajung. Hello. Hello, RF4. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. And Paul Johnson. Hello. Hello, Keedron. Hello, Zachary Garkin. I don't think I've seen you before, so hello. Andrew Bend. Hello. Wesley Phillips. Hello. Alex Miller. Hello. Zim Cross. Hello. Do you know how much about the possible super cruisers that were brought up with the 9.2-inch guns? I've seen bits and bobs about them. We're going to discuss some of them. Basically, I'm going for the ones which actually have classes, but I am considering doing one about the studies in future, and I'm going to discuss the studies today. But I've got pictures of the ones which actually had classes, because I feel it's fair to put pictures in of them, of what they might mean, because we actually know what. But I will discuss 9.2-inch, because it all starts in the same point pre-World War II, which actually is going to feature quite heavily in the town class videos, which are going to be coming out on Sunday, because I've arranged for a long patrol to come out on Sunday, because I'm not doing brew ships on Sunday, because I'm travelling and wandering around. Hello, Steam Cross. Hello, Force A1. Hello, Alec. Hello, Michael Rose. Clean your ducts. It's kind of a pain, but it helps air quality a ton. That is the plan. We've had so much going on in terms of other building work. We haven't managed to do it, but we do need to do it. We have a hot air heating system, and it's just, yeah. Hello, Weeb Extraordinaire. Thank you for joining us again. Carl goes, recough. When they installed a UV air cleaner in the office, I got a runny nose. Oh. Yeah, I think it could well be a humidifier. It's weird. Hello, shoot me. As I said, Dan Freeman, just making food, so not able to chat much. And you're not sharing any. That's just terrible. Terrible. One. Are we covering the conventional gun cruisers that culminated with Design Z4C, the Design D Minotaur, the missile cruisers that end with GW96A, or the Essex cruisers that led to the Invisible class? Basically, I'm theoretically ending with the Minotaurs, mainly because the missile cruisers get into a whole different debate with the county class, and because it's kind of cool. Excuse me. For anyone on this, I've also done about 6 hours of teaching today. All sorts of fun things have been done today. John Sharp, is that the Invincible class through deck cruiser of the early 1970s, of the 1970s to early 2000s? Yes. They're always fun. So, introduction and background. Now, I have put up a USS Alaska there, and I've put it up because, honestly, whenever I start talking about heavy cruisers and what some of them are planned to be, are considered to be, you end up talking about the Alaskas because they are the ultimate heavy cruisers of the period. The RN even does have plans which do involve 12-inch guns. If you go to the link in the description, I think I have it. If I haven't put in there, I'll go track it down. A link to a forum World of Warships post from Jamie Seedale, aka Armoured Carriers, talking about some British heavy cruiser designs and all the various ones they were looking at, and some of the Type A cruisers they were talking about, and London Treaty, and various options they had for producing from the county class. So we're going to concentrate on 4 classes today, mainly because I thought I'd probably do about 2 hours today. Because, as said, it's been a long day. And I've got a long drive tomorrow. Which I'm looking forward to. But, yeah. Got an early start and a long drive tomorrow, so I'm not going to go to the full 9:30 because I'm trying to move everything a bit earlier. Good evening, Bellnora. Turning 343. You know what made my day? Unplugging all the dust that have been coalescing in the phone's USB-C and mini jack. My life feels completely different now. That's both very heartening and slightly worrying. Honestly, turning 3434. Heartening and worrying simultaneously. Hello, Jeff Beeler. And hello, Trevor Aiton. Will you be covering the counties at some point? Welcome to the Saris. And yes, I will be doing the counties, a proper class discussion of them at some point as well. So, now, this is, of course, my favourite map from the 1930s, and I can use a modern map from today, but believe it or not, there aren't maps from the 1940s, from during World War II, of showing the trade routes. That's kind of a given. And there aren't really many maps from the 1950s. And as I prefer, when using information, to use information from before, because it grows usually, rather than use information from afterwards and suggest that it wasn't that dissimilar to them when it does change. This is why I've got this up. The British Empire still existed the whole way through the 1930s. It still existed in World War II, and it still existed after World War II. Britain still had a global presence required of its navy. It still had to be there. It still needed the ships to be there. Trouble was, it had a run of very interesting Labour governments. Hello, Band Home. This sounds to be an interesting talk. I hope it will be. Hello, Felix B. Ian Carr. Were drawing offices constantly producing developed designs when not busy on commissioned ships? Pretty much. Delivery for free. You cannot imagine how irritating a headphone can be if it just doesn't want to stay in. Also, charging doesn't tempt me anymore to claw my eyes out. Well, as said, I am glad for you, but there's also part of me which is worried for you. I feel like I should try and make sure you have more in your day. And I will just admit it now. British Cruisers has been a major source, as has Cruisers of the World. And the link in the description below to Jamie Seedale's World of Warships post on heavy cruisers has also been quite a big feature in my discussions and my thinking, because this is what you need to protect, and this is what the Royal Navy's thinking about. I often get asked, why does the Royal Navy go for 6-inch guns? Well, it's principally because they think the engagement range is going to be between 15 and 18 kilometers in any fight. And so they start doing this. In car, UK was also bankrupt after World War II. Ian, we've been over this in the Suez Crisis and several ones about the carrier aviation and various things coming up. A nation which is still launching about half a dozen to a dozen aircraft carriers over any decade is not exactly bankrupt. I agree it's not financially in a great position, Britain, at this point, but bankrupt is a long way off. Right, so, which RN cruisers really brought the metal to 18 kilometers? Now, if you look there, you can see the county line. They are third from the top. The first batch of Crown Colony, the Fijis, sit on top of the towns. They're second from top. And there's the super town, the concept only, the planned quadruple turret, Edinburgh and Belfast. Well, you can see just how much tonnage of high explosive is coming your way if you get into a fight with them. It's not fun. It's really not fun. It's really not what you want to be facing. So that's why the RN is going for a 6-inch cruiser. Now, in a convoy protection era, the RN had presumed it was going to have to protect all across the Atlantic, but it also thought that it could block off the Indian Ocean from any threat, so it wouldn't need to do convoys in the Indian Ocean. It felt it might need to convoy the Mediterranean depending on whether Italy was neutral or wouldn't be going through the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean if Italy was against. So they had worked things out in terms of their convoying, Jeff, to answer your question. But also, they'd worked out what they needed. If you need 8-inch cruisers to fight every battle, then the RN would have built 8-inch cruisers. They would have. I've talked before about how they got involved with the treaties, how they basically manipulated them. If they needed an 8-inch cruiser for everything, they would have got the 8-inch cruisers. But they didn't. They worked out that 6-inch guns, rate of fire at the range available in 1930s. And remember, this is pre-radar coming in as we understand it. This is when still using visuals, line of sight engagement. 18 kilometers is pretty good. And even once you have radar in, it's still very good. Turning 3434. Bankrupt or a bit short of cash are different things. Short of cash is more what Britain was. Carl Gasway. It is a bit weird in a semi-academic language, just like World of Warships Forum Con, but it is 2020 after all. To be fair, I normally wouldn't do it, but I'm citing Jamie Seedall. So that's where he wrote it. And trust me, when I found it, and he was sort of going, you found it! It wasn't me. It's all listed as you, Jamie. Yeah. Yeah. Beta testing. Then bankrupt comes in 1976 on Labour government, successive financial mismanagement of post-war consensus governments. Oh, yeah. Pretty much. They are, but I would still say not bankrupt then. Still just economically very, very short. It's basically... Britain never quite goes bankrupt. Britain does bankrupt, you can actually do more things than what happens. Britain just reaches the point where it's got no money to spend, but it's still got income coming in. So it's not it hasn't got the income, it just hasn't got the cash because it's overcommitted it. And when a country still has the income to technically cover its expenses coming in, but it's not coming in the ways it's supposed to because of their playing around with it, that's when you have the financial situation Britain ends up in. But it's not quite what defines as national bankruptcy. It's a fun times. Pardon me? That's the other thing. When you're coughing on your own with a computer screen, you forget sometimes to put your hand in front of your mouth, and it's very rude. I do apologise for that one. Jeff here, the Churchill put the UK back on the gold standard too fast after World War One. Did not do wonders for the economy. Dried up funds instead of increasing them to rebuild the pound. Oh, dollars the USA. That was one of the issues. But he was going with the best economic advice at the time, which was terrible, but that was the best economic advice at the time. In fact, I would say economist advice is always great in hindsight. Okay, so here's the thing. Vigilant, what is a kilometer, says the American. Okay. So roughly 10 kilometers is roughly 6 miles. So 18 kilometers is roughly... Six times 0.8. 4.8. Almost 11 miles. Okay? Mike Ross, economic policy in the 30s prepared the country for the expected prolonged conflict. Without this, Britain probably would have bust its economy during the war. Most likely. Can't guess what, 18 kilometers is roughly 10 nautical miles or 19,000 yards or so. Yeah. I might do a video on paper about battleships in the future, but leave that to one side. So, Britain's looking at how to protect this. The 6-inch cruisers are looking very, very good. What is the other reason for it? Because when you consider they're delivering that tonnage, but with a lighter shell. And when I say a lighter shell, by how much lighter do I mean? Because I have a lovely chart. A lovely, lovely chart. So, the 8-inch shell of the counties, that's whether the full counties or the Yorks or the Surreys, weighs in at 116 kilograms. Now, believe it or not, I have to work this out in metric because otherwise it doesn't make sense in the formula. The kilogram weight of the 6-inch shell is 51 kilograms. The Dido's 5.25-inch shell weighs in at 36.29 kilograms. Fun. So, in simple terms, a 6-inch shell weighs less than half of that of an 8-inch shell. 6-inch shell weighs in at 51 kilograms, an 8-inch shell 116 kilograms. But the difference comes in when you're considering the number that will be fired. The average Town class cruiser, Fiji batch Crown Colony class cruiser, or Tribal class destroyer, when it still has all 4 mounts being 4.7-inch guns, can fire 938 shells at an enemy in 10 minutes. So, I'm not saying they will get 938 hits. By gone, though. I'm not claiming that. But that's the number of shells they can fire. That's why they're designed as they are, because of the sheer volume of fire. Why is the Royal Navy doing it this way? Why is the Royal Navy thinking about this? Well, because they're using visual aiming, and they're working out the rough percentages of hits they're likely to get. And they're factoring in for the lowest level. So they reckon you fire the same number of shells. It doesn't matter if they're 8-inch or 6-inch. They've got the same individual chance of that shell hitting. If you're firing that many more shells, and if you consider in the equivalent time of firing, a county class would fire 394 shells in 10 minutes. An Exeter or York type B county would fire 295 shells in 10 minutes. Then that's a lot less chance of hitting. Let's say you are running at a very, very conservative. Let's say you're reckoning you're going to get 5% hit rate. If you fire 394 shells, let's be generous. Let's say you get 20 hits. Well, hey, you got 20 hits on 8-inch. 8-inch. Let's say 1 in 10 hits are going to be critical. So you got 2 critical hits. Well, hey, maybe you sunk your opponent. Let's use those same metrics then on a town class cruiser. Well, for starters, you've got 47 hits, of which 4, possibly 5, are critical. That's over 10 minutes. So in one, you have 20 hits, which might mean a hit every 30 seconds. In the other, you've got 48, which means, well, no, 47. So that's about an average of 9 hits every 2 minutes. That's not a fun time to be on a ship. That means your ship's going to be hit a lot more. And also, then you start to realize that they're more likely to hit more as they fire more salvos. And so you have an increased so you're firing your salvos more quickly. You can refine your shots that much more quickly, so you get on target more quickly. Okay, ships are maneuvering and these sort of things, but then it all adds up, and suddenly you start to see that the 6-inch, the 8-inch is the better on paper because you can hit further away and you can hit harder. But when you start doing the exercise and you start looking at, okay, what's going to actually kill the enemy, you start to see why the RN are focusing in on the 6-inch. Because, yes, if they come up against a well-handled 8-inch cruiser, they are going to be in a lot of trouble. But against anything else in the world, a well-armed, well-handled 6-inch cruiser can outgun it. And a well-armed 8-inch cruiser, handled 8-inch cruiser, if it comes up against a pair of 6-inch cruisers, or an 11-inch armed Panzerschiff, which comes up against a pair of 6-inch cruisers and a stunted 8-inch cruiser. Well, things happen. Eamon, wasn't the USN Super Heavy 8-inch shell £335? It might have been, but it was a Super Heavy. Andy spoke about 5.25 inch instead of 6 inch plus 4 inch should have been made more displacement available for armor, fuel, and mobility. Was Cunningham wrong rejecting the 5.25 inch armed 1944 cruiser? No. The 5.25 inch shell is. It's one of the interesting things because actually, the 5.25 inch shell does sound like it's a good combination until you realize it is 36.29 kilograms, and it doesn't have the high energy impact of the 6-inch. It has the same rate of fire as the 6-inch, and it actually flies slower through the air. And they kept trying to work on the 5.25 inch, and every time they found the 6-inch was a better area of development. Funny. That extra 3/4 of an inch really does make a difference in terms of your flight profile and your range and all sorts of factors. And you could, they were developing a 6-inch AA gun, and that was actually the plan. And plus, the 6-inch could do far more in the way of land support and presence missions than a 5.25 inch because it has just that little bit more status. Sadly enough, size does matter. And the 6-inch does line up with roughly the 150mm, which is a sort of standard size, whereas 5.25 doesn't really line up with anything. Let's see. RN and Nelson's Day, Martin Dock was about ready to fire, so no deal of difference. Nope. In car, County 8x8, Crown Colony 9x6. Actually, the original colonies had 12 times 6, and Tribals 8x4 inch, 4.7 inch. Mm-hmm. Calvin Gaspo. Actually, having more barrels, i.e. 6 versus 8, Rangers House get in faster, so a 6-inch stands a better chance to land that important first blow, except 8-inch can start blinking from a tad farther, which is what I did say, but I'm presuming I was still building up to bottom point, and Carl has helpfully get backed up in the message in the chat before I even got there, so thank you, Carl. It's always nice to know that I'm not the only one who's getting to that point. Eamon, did the performance of the battlecruiser fleet Mod 1 influence the RN looking at the rate of fire issue and the probability of hits. I would love to say it didn't, but it did have a factor in that they worked out that with gun crews, you needed more, and the more practice, the better. And again, 6-inch shell barrels for slightly heavier would wear slightly slower than 8-inch barrels. Whereas if you had 8-inch barrels designed to wear slower, they would be a lot heavier. Jeff Peter, how do the Surreys compare to refitted HMS London? Pardon me. If they were built when designed, the Surreys are a bit more heavily armoured and a bit slower than a Norfolk. So we're going to get into those in a second. We're talking about these, though, and general stuff. Calvin Gaswood, in defense of that 11-inch, its shell explosion rate was well below, also below nominal rate. Yeah, it was. There were many, many problems with that poor 11-inch armed heavy cruiser. But for starters, the fact it was armed with 11-inch guns rather than 8-inch. And it just repeated us. I haven't covered the Minotaurs yet. I'm just about to get to the Surreys, but I'm going through this part. Dinos look cool, though. Mm-hmm. Dejan Gabrovic. Dejan Gavrosek? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it horribly. Was 5.25-inch gun then a mistake? 5.25-inch was built in a time when they couldn't make 6-inch general purpose, and 4.5-inch wasn't considered heavy enough AA armament. So it's a compromise. But it's a good gun, and it's a good compromise. It's just by the time that you're getting into 1944, you do have that general purpose 6-inch gun, which could go up to 80 degrees. So your choice is, I can have a 5.25-inch, which can go up to 80 degrees, or I can have a 6-inch gun, which can go up to 80 degrees. Oh. Me want the 6-inch. It's bigger. Simple. That's literally Cunningham's perspective. And Cunningham is quite funny, because at the beginning of World War II, he is not that keen on the town-class cruisers, especially in the Mediterranean. And then by the time he becomes First Sea Lord, he's basically going, I want a bigger, better Belfast! Turning 343, you missed only missed the obligatory RN's View of the World, aka 30s World Map. I know, I bring it up a lot, but it's a good starting point, and it's one of those foundational things. And we always have new people joining us every day, every session. So sometimes when I'm doing these, I think better have that again. We be sure. The problem with a 5.25-inch is more that it contained the worst of both worlds: the specific performance of a destroyer's weapon and the rate of fire and training of a cruiser weapon. Yep. No, 1640. Not that late. Felix B. So you're saying 3 6-inch gun cruisers would have killed the Graf Spee? If one of them had been a town class, it really wouldn't have had fun. I mean, literally, if it had a full-blown county there, or a town, because honestly, if we go to this map, this graph, and we look at it again, if you look carefully, you'll notice the York you cannot see because they are so low. The York are actually the fourth from the bottom. they can deliver 34.27 tons in 10 minutes. Which means they outperform the Didos, and they outperform the Tribals. And they outperform the Leanders and the Arafusers. Leander and Arafusers both get 31.88 tons. Hang on. Yeah. Arafusers sort of hidden on this one. But yeah, they really don't do well compared to the rest. The firepower the others produce is far heavier and far more. And at the ranges they get to, this again sounds strange, the 6-inch gun could penetrate as enough to do the damage it needed to do. Mm-hmm. Hello, Greg Sorowski. Ron Cash, bring the metal. Love it. That's the tiny as well. Well, you know, it worked. To be fair, the 5.25 inch mounts, as they ended up on Vanguard, solved most of the problems. And by 1944, they were already much better than they were 3 years earlier. Yes, they were. Much better by the end of the war. But the 6-inch gun, which was available in 1944, was even better still. Derb Squad, could a 6-inch gun load fast enough and the turret rotate fast enough to be an effective AA barrage weapon? That was certainly the plan by the end of World War II. That was certainly what they were looking at, and what was the reason why Cunningham was far more keen on a 6-inch cruiser than he was a 5.25-inch cruiser. Manly 1640, what is this grasp? It is a grasp of how much explosive a Royal Navy cruiser could get to 18 kilometers, or in the case of the Tribal class, 15 kilometers, because I've got some destroyers in there for just for comparison, in 10 minutes. So this axis is explosives, tonnage, and this axis is time. Nautical Wolf. So mostly 6-inch ships backed up by a small number of 8 inches, a good choice for a fleet. Yes. Martin Locke. Didos look cool, but due to the size, they had limited value in post-war war. They couldn't really be upgraded fast enough. They didn't have the space for it. They're not obligatory tribals. They're just put in there because you need a point of reference. And I was tempted to add in the cruisers, not the cruisers which weren't built, and put in the daring class as well, just to spice things up a little bit, because they could get to 18 kilometers. But I'll leave that to one side. They're fun. They're 4.5-inch guns. Hello, Earthborn Gnome. Strap, sorry, Doctor, just joined. How would USN cruisers look on the chart? AK, Cleveland, Baltimore, Atlanta classes. Not that different if you consider their 6-inch guns, 8-inch guns, and their AA weapons. So, wouldn't have looked that different. The thing was, the metrics which defined how fast you could fire a 6-inch gun could be improved a little bit, but not that much. The RN was very, very proud when it managed to get it down to a 6-second loadout. And that was about as fast as they could get. And that was after, by the end of World War II, with a lot of technology developed put into it. They could get it down to that. But usually about 7.5 seconds is the rough average. The 8-inch gun, you can't get it. And this is one of the debates which goes on with the idea of the 9.2-inch, which will be about as fast loading as the 8-inch versus the 6-inch. Jeff Peeler, so how is the shift from 8-inch to 6-inch related to the RN's increasing emphasis on night fighting? Well, I'd have thought that would have been quite simple. It's part of all the RN's perspective. They're reckoning they're not going to be fighting at long range. If you're fighting a short off range, do you need the 8-inch? Do you need the extra range of range the 8-inch gives you? It's not going to be really long-range gun drills at night. Even once you have radar in the world, well, again, you can fire a lot more shells in a 6-inch gun. Force A1, the Sorry class would have the same way to fire as the other gunners, unless of course they were designed and built for the to the early 5-turret design. They weren't going to be. They were going to be modified Norfolks. George Crab, more shells equal more chance of a lucky hits, disabling radar, fire control, etc. Yes. It happens. Rogmerg, I'm uninformed, but could you enlighten me on the super towns? The super towns are... Well, we'll get to the super towns. Super towns are cute. So, Eric Harkin, hello, Daring's pocket cruisers. Yes, they were. I have no issue with tribals. The Germans, Italians, might have issues, but I don't. Yes, not just them. The Japanese also had issues with the tribals, but leave that to one side. That was the end of World War II. The tribals were feeling charitable at that point and felt that they'd neglected their Japanese brethren, so they decided to go out there and join them. I always remember the quote from the commander of the Eastern Fleet, who sent a note to the HMS Nubian and went, "I wasn't expecting you out here for another month. We thought we might be needed." How did you get out here so quickly? We came through the Mediterranean. They basically blasted the Mediterranean at full speed. Don't do. Only 16 and 40. So the axis is bursting charge weight instead of shell weight. Yes. Hang on. Was it bursting or that graph? I've got both graphs of both. I think that graph was actually the total. Let me just check it. That's the total shell weight, not the bursting charge weight. But bursting charge weight, the 6-inch still came out just ahead. It's slightly less obvious, but it is just ahead. It's just a sheer number of shells. And also the fact the 8-inch is orientated far more on armor piercing than the 6-inch. The Iron felt they couldn't have ships as long as they would need to be to fit 5 turrets and still fit in most of the ports, harbours, docks they planned to use. And that was part of the issue. The other part of the issue is 5 turrets is really, really weird. Descott, also in night fighting, rate of fire is more important. Until radar, likely miss a lot more than daytime fighting. Therefore, accuracy through volume of fire. Yes, or as the tribal class destroyers called it, reconnaissance by fire. Dan Freeman wants treble 8-inch guns for the turrets. For the sorries, that would have been nice. Mercy 340 and Peter Dawson. I have to be careful sometimes about how I speak, but also there is the point that, as I said at the beginning, I have been speaking a lot today, so I'm being kind of careful with my voice. So if I do pick the wrong words, tell me, and I'm quite happy to correct myself. FB it up. How does the Surrey design relate to your connector designs? Well, the idea was that they would be, how do I put this? That if you built them smaller, you could actually still build them. Although, to be fair, York is ordered at the same time as Norfolk, pretty much. Exeter is delayed till after Surreys are cancelled. Danner Khanham, I think the workers who constantly had to strap new bows onto the tribals might not be too happy about it. What again? Come on, guys. Look, they didn't lose a bow against the Japanese. No, they didn't lose a bow against the Japanese. Theoretians, hi Doc. Did the Towns and Yorks use the same Mark 8-inch guns? The counties and Yorks didn't use the same gun barrels, but different turrets. Or well, actually no. How to put it? The Yorks were supposed to use the lighter turrets, which turned out to be heavier turrets, and couldn't do the 70-degree firing, which the first generation could be. Michael Sanson. Alex, forgive my ignorance, but were the 6 8-inch shells heavy enough so they needed a loading tray, but light enough so they could be hand rammed? Yeah. I think they were just about. Although I do think they did bring in an automatic ramming system. I think they tried an automatic ramming system at one point, but I think they were hand rammed. To be fair, Derp Squad, the definition of the tribals was, we think there's an enemy over there. Fire. Oh, good, they're on fire. Keep firing. It's how they designated targets at night. They'd fire a shell, it'd explode, and if it was stayed on fire, that was the enemy, so everyone else would fire in that direction as well. It saved on searchlights. Trent Lenko. Hello. Dr. Locke. I had the single impression that the 6-inch was at the sweet spot of metallurgy and loading technology for the period. Yes, very much until 1950 it was. And I would argue could be again today if we worked on it. I like that Dr. Alex needs to check that they didn't lose a battle to the Japanese. Yeah, you have to always check with. There are Australian tribals out there fighting the Japanese, and I had to mentally go through and check none of them lost their battle to the Japanese. Oh great, a large orange feline has landed on my chest, purring quite loudly and running their head over my face. Yeah, that's a fluffy research assistant for you. Anonymous. Searchlight makes me visible. Boom on the enemy better. Run ship close and shoot, and if I hit, all else fire. Smart. Yeah. It also works that there were a surprising large number of Royal Navy destroyer torpedo men who could actually sight by a fire. In that they'd actually practiced a target on fire at night and how you sight torpedoes to estimate with a fire which is moving, because a fire, of course, is not a constant light. It flickers and it changes shape, and it might be being fought. So you need to be quite, understanding it to be able to range it properly. And the Royal Navy was the only navy, to my knowledge, that actually practiced that in the interwar period and continued practicing it during World War II. JP, how significant is the Surrey's 30-knot top speed? Let's go into this, because it's just easier to get in. I've got a picture of HMS Norfolk with some destroyers here. So, the starting point is the Norfolk class. We can see their armament, we can see their displacement, their dimensions. The Surreys were going to be slightly slower. Their top speed dropped down to 30 knots, so they lost a knot and a half in speed. They were going to have, it was hoped they would have, a first generation of 3-drum boilers, so they wouldn't need 8 boilers, but could drop down to 4 boilers to power the 4 Brown Curtis, the 4 Parsons turbines, and would get 70,000 ship horsepower to about 72,000 ship horsepower. They'd also be far more efficient, and the weight saving from that would be poured into, as long with the rest, of actually giving the ship more armor. So it would have a slightly lighter machinery. It would have a slightly more spacious interior, but it would have far thicker armor, which would mean they could take far more hits. Basically, the RN was seeking a balanced cruiser. What people don't often miss with the Surreys is they think the RN is looking for a super cruiser or a next generation of cruiser which is better. But the RN is going, okay, we've got the 8-inch gun as well as we can, and actually there's a movement within the RN to give the Surreys the older turret rather than new turret, because it can do that 70-degree thing, and they think the 8-inch can be used for AA in 70 degrees. But I will be honest, whilst I doubt an 8-inch gun would hit much in AA mode at this time, I do have a feeling that if I was a pilot and an 8-inch gun was firing shells in my direction and one whizzed past me, I might feel that the Lord was calling me to drop my bombs quickly and get the frick out of there. I mean, literally, I would be thinking, yeah, I just saw a bus go past that way. I think I must follow it. Let everyone else deal with the 8-inch gun today. Where is a nice little destroyer? Come here, my pretty. You might be festooned with 40 millimeters, but I'll face you over that. It's one of the scary things. It's the other interesting thing is that at one point, instead of developing the 5.25-inch gun to be the AA gun, they did consider trying to develop the 8-inch gun. So we can all cast our minds to that idea. The Royal Navy entering World War II fielding 8-inch AA guns with proximity fuses and shrapnel. Whew. It'll be fun. I think not. Let's see. Basically, a Surrey is take a Norfolk and build from there. It's not going to look like London post-refit until it's had its refit. We're talking about ships which were ordered in 1928, 27, 28, and cancelled in 1930. They were actually cancelled, and this is what I hate when governments do this, right? The Labour government cancelled them before the London Naval Treaty as a sign of good faith. You do not cancel ships before you go to a treaty agreement. That's giving away things which you can protect. If you want to sacrifice them during the treaty and get something off the other side. Do not give them away before you even get into the freaking negotiations. Oh, good Lord. Seriously, I do wonder if none of our political leaders have ever studied Negotiation 101. Can you imagine? I don't know. Any average businessman going, you know what? I want to do a merger with them and have business. So what I'll do is I'm currently building 2 stores. I'll close them down before we even start discussions. Yeah, I'll stop them before even start. So I'm not a threat to them. Yeah. No, they wouldn't. They keep those being built up, and that would be part of. Oh, so we're gonna for part of the merger, we're gonna have to sacrifice those. That's a big thing. What are you gonna give me to make that worth our while? No. Kingsrook, the RAN and RCN tribals in practice a torpedo aiming by firelight? I'm generally shocked. They did. But it was literally, when I'm talking about Royal Navy tribals, you have to understand that in the treaty system and the structure of how they were run in the 1930s and through most of World War II, the Royal Navy, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Royal Australian Navy, Royal New Zealand Navy, the Royal South African Navy, the Royal Indian Navy are pretty much one navy. In so many ways. When it comes to their promotions, when it comes to their selecting senior officers, when it comes to their training, when it comes to their doctrine development, all these things, they are pretty much one navy. Yes, their politicians might act and argue and all sort of things, but that's at the political level. At the level below that, the operational level and the doctrine level and the structures level and the personnel level, they're pretty much acting as one navy. It's an interesting debate going on over King George V class, isn't it? Veteran assuming, hello, haven't seen anyone. Is it just me, or do the Iron Destroyers seem to be the best trained destroyermen in the world during this period? I'm not sure I would say that. I could probably argue that, but the RN Destroyer Force is certainly the only destroyer force which considers itself an elite within its navy. The US Navy destroyers are proud, but they won't consider themselves elite till during World War II. And in many ways, they're not looked at. The RN force is considered an elite, even basically it's a legacy of the Harwich force, like the experience in World War One. The RN destroyers in the interwar years are going, we are an elite. It's our job to take the fight to the enemy. We have to be the most aggressive, most decisive force we can be. And you take that force and then you tell them, right then, you guys are great, but you're going to need some fire support going. So we're going to make an elite version of you lot even. So there's the elite, which are the tribals. And the tribal crews basically go, it's sort of the case of they are... How would I describe it? In these days, it would be the difference between Royal Marine Commandos and the SPS. In that's the sort of, they are... Royal Marine Commandos are an elite, we all know that. SPS are drawn from them and are even more specialist. And scary when they want to be. We've destroyed. Did some candies eventually get a 4.5-inch belt? It may or may not have affected their overall displacement. Sure, Mac, wasn't the older turret lighter for some ungodly reason? Yes, it was. And it was basically because they tried to make the second Mark II turret lighter by taking all sorts of things out of its design, and they dipped them out, and then when they take them out, it was good and it wasn't working, so they had to add in all sorts of strengthening to make it work, which ended up making it heavier. DDs and the destroyer escorts in Taffy 3 did use Starshell and direct fire, as well as the A2H Kriegsmarine and APHE Common and Incendiary. King's Rook 8-inch AA is terrifying and hilarious at the same time. Yes. Dan Freeman, 8-inch AA, I might not hit, but if I do, you aren't walking away. Actually, I think if 8-inch hits anything, then you and your buddies in the next plane along probably aren't walking away. 700 and say hello to the Beehive Shell, the Yamato. Greg Salsky, did they have proximity fuses for the 8-inch? Yeah. They developed them by the end of World War II. They had plans for them earlier on than that. What about the 460mm AA shells the IJN had? Very nice. It's still not fun. It's not something you want to come up against. Trent Langham. FY, Australian cruiser and travel destroyer, Shropshire and Arunta, respectively, were at the Battle of Surrey Strait. Yep. Thundergama, you're laughing at them right up until you get hit. Then it's suddenly very not funny at that. I think that's for the 8-inch AA guns. Yes. Oh, Scott, the difference between an AA gunner and pilot is that the pilot needs to hit, while the AA gunner simply needs to distract the pilot enough that they miss. Yes. Originally, as you were right in saying, the original 8-inch is 8-inch guns for AA were using time fuses, so again, blast radius matters. Anonymous. Washington Treaty has me convinced arms control treaties don't work. That's pretty much what most people who wrote the START treaties concluded, and therefore they tried to make the START treaties as different from the naval treaties as they could. John Shea. How to make a SA-7 the SAM version of a naval gun. 203mm flat gun. Basically an overkill. It works. Dunrikana, careful, Dr. Clark, or you'll end up like a certain Roman emperor after talking with the Goths. Barnes Wallace post-war designed the Green Lizard missile, which was meant to be fired from a gun. Ooh, cool. I think I'd heard that, but I didn't realize it was called the Green Lizard missile. Let's see. Dev Squad, politician negotiation. Politicians have tended to think negotiate is something that civil servants do, and therefore somewhat beneath their elevated post. Oh, please help me now. Please, not tell me no. Turning 343. Doctor has more than a few videos explaining why the RN walked away with a smirk. Maybe that is what you're implying from rest of the world viewpoint. I think it's true for everyone to an extent, but I think I do wonder what the RN could have got for sacrificing those two counties. If you consider what they got for the rest, if they'd had two ships on the stock saying, we've put so much effort into building these, and we're going to have to sacrifice them. Imagine what the Royal Navy could have got out of the 1930 London Treaty. I mean, literally. For sacrificing HMS Surrey and HMS Northumberland. Imagine it. Imagine how much they'd have milked out of that treaty. They'd have had, I don't know, an extra 10,000, 12, 15,000 tons of light cruiser tonnage. That's good. Re-SBS. Everyone is tough until the shadow starts sipping tea. Yeah. Admiralty of the Fluff. Hello. Was a tribal class able U.S. Johnson like heroics technically? Battle of Narvik. Have a look at what HMS Eskimo did. I agree. USS Johnson. I would put that on the same par as Eskimo, which loses its bow and turns round and carries on its turn, fires its torpedoes, and then advances stern first towards the Germans. I would say they're both up there as pretty darn heroic. And then there's HMS Somali and HMS Sikh, which I seem to remember both of them had run-ins with Italian battleships and drove off the Italian battleships. So, that's what they do. That's what elite destroyers are expected to do. How do Surrey Zero designs relate to the late Edinburghs? Well, we're going to get to that. That's why we have super towns now. It's a good time to ask that question. Warren Swine, hello. Fair point about political cancellations, but the Tories plan to sell Invincible to Australia just before. It's the nature of the beast. We can get it. That one's always a fun one. Hermes was to be disposed of. Let's see. Vigilant, despite the cheat. Excuse me a second. That's better. Despite the cheating, I think the naval treaties did work to constrain a post-war arms race. Would have worked better if UK wasn't always trying to downsize battleships by treaty from Washington. Well, Basically, we didn't want to have to make the Suez Canal any bigger. And we knew how it upset the Americans every time they had to make the Panama Canal larger. So, we were trying to be helpful. Plus, every time we talked about downsizing battleships, no one was taking notice what we were doing on cruisers. And as I've said before, cruisers were slightly more useful. Ben Rasumi, how did the counties and Yorks influence the IJN? I imagine as one of the counties, they are countries they are likely to respond. I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with IJN seers, but I'm curious about their responses. Well, the IJN tended to get a good long look at the county class cruisers because and the towns, because they tended to be the vessels which were in 5th Cruiser Squadron and 4th Cruiser Squadron in the China Station and Indian East Indies. And will be the ones who go, "Hello, Mr. Japanese Cruiser, what are you doing here?" Or, "Hello." So, it seems we've come to a bit of a scenario where you have decided to do something and we're not going to let you do it. Now, you might disagree with this, but we're the British, we're the Royal Navy. Don't do it. Or we'll get really nasty with you. You're not going to do it now. Thank you. That's so kind of you. John South, is Dr. Clark okay? He was sounding rough a few days ago and not like him to be this late. I think that was an earlier message which has finally come through. And I moved it to 6:30 because of, as I said, my sister was teaching and there was no competing with MS Teams. There is never any keeping. MS Teams wipes out the internet in this house. I'm honest, the dirty secret is the RN built the IJN, though they started to do that way back in the 1910s. A little bit earlier, please, thank you. We started building the IJN in the 1890s. Nutty Happy One, Minotaur and Fiji, if Canada ordered their true batches, which are updated versions, what are you? How they throw loaded out? Probably. I should listen to my naval history more. Zentiv, now that you mention Narvik, facepalm with Bunny. It could be worse. It could be worse, don't worry. And Reagan fully goaded the USSR into an unsustainable arms race and bankrupted the Soviets thereby. These things work. Nixon also got involved in it. Jeff Beeler, why did the counties not look like modernized HMS London in the first place? Because they're built in the early 1920s. And you have to remember that if you want to look at their design peers, you're looking at the C, D, and E class light cruisers. You're looking at the Hawkins class. Okay, so that's where they come from. They can't all look this gorgeous. And this is gorgeous. It is beautiful. I have to put a credit. This is from the World of Warships one. This is because I was looking around for the graphics of what the super town was going to be, and none were as beautiful as this. So, thank you, World of Warships. They've said I can. Well, I got Drac to ask them, and they said that I could use them. So I'm using their graphics. And you will notice, first things first, it looks a lot like Edinburgh and Belfast for a reason. They were designed to have the quadruple gun, it just wasn't ready at the time. So, basically, it's a quadruple gunned Belfast and Edinburgh. Yeah, 16 6-inch guns, baby. Coming to say hello. It's a non-stop party for anyone. Basically, it's a fun house that you would never want to go away from. Right. Ian Carr, HMS Glowworm had a pretty good go at being a tribal or John Slunk. Yes, she did. Greg Stowski. The biggest problem with Washington and London was that they only looked at the numbers and ignored the cultural aspects and how the Japanese ended up feeling not treated as equals. Oh, yes, but that was mainly thanks to everyone playing everyone else off against each other, including the Japanese trying to play the Americans off against the Brits. Okay. Jeff Beeler, how do the Spanish Assaris compare to the Spanish Canaris class other than the Mahusive Spanish funnel? Again, not that different. Although, to be honest, the Canaris are not as good as the regular counties. For some reason, the RN don't give them that great a design. Vision, on naval treaties, UK still got stuck with 14-inch KGVs. That was by their own choice. That was their own government's choice, okay? That wasn't their choice. That wasn't the Navy's choice. That was the government who decided that by Britain building a 14-inch battleship, everyone else would want to build a 14-inch battleship. They forgot the world was run by men at the time entirely. And men are obsessed with size. And 14 inches just wasn't big enough. My fluffy research assistant is currently saying hello to a plumber who's just arrived to fix our water softener, I think. Which has been leaking today. Was supposed to arrive earlier, but... Because we have mains water pressure leaking. Fun times. Right. Let's see. Danham, I'm more critical or questioning of the circumstances led to Glowworm being in that situation. Pretty much Glowworm was attached from Renown's hunting group to do some reconnaissance, and as such, she's on her own. That's good. MS Teams has the standard Microsoft approach to people's computers and networks. Oh, it's all ours, and we must because we can. Confidential 1207. Hello, Stardust. Is that middle part aviation space? Yeah, I think it is, considering it's got the big crane. Well, it's got some AA space, so it might not have aviation. I'm not sure. I have got another picture. Let me go and find it. Mm-hmm. Nah, can't find it, unfortunately. Drax sent me a whole load of these photos, so do expect them to be being used. Also, one. There's a sketch of the quad turret armed town in Conrad Waters' British Town class cruisers. Yes, there is, but it's not as nice a picture as this one. I'm sorry, it hasn't got a Union Jack on top of it. I like it. It's not as nice as this. Weeb Extraordinaire. The warship model implies a sort of noticeable wall between the left and right pair of guns, a la Dunkirk and Rickley. Was that actually designed as such, or more like the KVGVs? Actually, on the 6-inch guns, it is sort of like that, in that I would agree that was a likely occurrence, because they were looking at that, and it was another way it was felt that, how do I put this? If there is an impact which does manage to penetrate the turret on one side, if you've got a strong enough piece of armour, and it's, let's say, an 8-inch cruiser that gets the impact, you could well still have half your turret working. So there was that there. Now, re 4-inch gun, 4-gun turrets. Would they be split like the French 4-gun turrets, or one big happy firing family? As I said. Also, would they need to offset the guns to avoid issues with air disruption? Well, it's one of the interesting things. Again, if we expand this out, now I have a feeling that you would have had. You can sort of see if you look, the outer ones project slightly further out than the inner ones, and that does fit with what I've read of the studies. And remember, Henderson have been pushing the 4-inch guns for Belfast and Edinburgh. If the 4-inch guns had been available for Belfast and Edinburgh, I have no doubt that the following class, the Crown Colonies, would have had the 4-inch guns, the 4 6-inch guns. So, whether they would have been treble turrets and still had 12 guns like the towns, but would have had just 4 turrets with 3 turrets with 4 guns, maybe. But they were certainly looking into it and certainly pushing it. Jermac, Royal Navy Machine Gun Corps. But in real look, packing so much oomph in such turret might get issues with ammunition handling gear. That was the interesting thing. Okay, if you have gone inside Belfast, and this was one of the things I did want to put in a picture of the ammunition handling system down below. But one of the things you'll notice in Belfast is there's actually quite a lot of space underneath the turret. And that's because originally they were designed for this. The handling gear was all designed. The thing was the weight and managing the displacement and getting it to turn. So it was actually the gearing of turning the turret which was the problem and was holding it up. And they could have a choice of delay Belfast and Edinburgh's entry into service by another 6 months to a year, they thought, to fix it, or they could crack on and try and get them in as soon as possible. And with war approaching, they decided to crack on. And by the time they go back to them, well, that's what happens. Jeff Hiller, what happened to Henderson's 20,000-ton quad 9.2-inch design? That is one of the more fun options that does come along. That's Study 1 from the 1938 program you're referring to. And, yeah. 20,000-ton cruiser. That's a heavy cruiser and a half. And that's basically a forerunner of what Alaska would be built for. But pretty much it gets no one wants to build that big, because if you're building battleships, the thing with building a cruiser that size is you're getting into battle cruiser status, and then people ask, why aren't you building a fast battleship? That's the problem for cruisers at this point. The ceiling is put in place because there are battleships above them. Especially in British construction, because the yards you could go to build a 20,000-ton cruiser could also be building an aircraft carrier or a battleship, but they can't build those in the same space as the 20,000-ton cruiser. It's going to be one of those three. Whereas a yard which can build a 10,000-ton cruiser might not be the same yard which can also build a battleship or an aircraft carrier. Melicity40, your fluffy research assistant has caused mine to get up in distress to get up and begin searching for them. Well, that's good. Eventually, I do hope to do, once we've got the garden offices set up, to do a live stream with both fluffy research assistants present, so you can say hi to both of them at the same time. Usually it's one or the other. Stephen Richards, hello. Hi, Doc. Have you watched the New Jersey Museum channel yet? And what's your view on British 5.25 against US 5.1? Once I have watched the New Jersey Museum channel. I've saved a lot of their videos about how much I get around to watching them. And 5.25 versus 5.1. I would love them. I like the. I think the 5.25 is a better gun during World War II, but I think shortly afterwards, the Americans' development in the 5.1 inch means that it overtakes it. I think the 5.1 begins better. So in the first part, 1942 to 1943, I'd reckon the 5.1 is the better gun. But I'd say 44 to 45, maybe even 46, 5.25 is better at that time. And then after that, I would say the 5.1 takes over again. In Happy, what would you have to preferred? Building the Vanguard or two of the 9.2-inch heavier armed heavy cruisers? Oh, I would build the heavy cruisers, but this is me, not Winston Churchill. Dan, would the FRA be modified by Cuddles? I suspect the viewers would be pleased to say hello to him. I'm sure they would be, but he's currently keeping my mum company. And she's using him to make sure that she's keeping both Fluffy Research Assistants company. So she doesn't have to worry about it. She's distracted from the leak while the plumber deals with it. What? Plymouth was a real design? Code 8. Yes. Plymouth is a real design. Plymouth is actually really what Belfast should have looked like if she got her turrets built, the turret she was supposed to have. Alibra in 3. Was it a thing at the time to paint the Union Jack on a turret? Actually, it was. Not all ships do it, but some do it for recognition from aircraft above. Especially those operating in spaces with allies who might not always notice the difference between your ship and the Japanese ship. I'm not saying which ally there was a particular problem from it. Occasionally, of course, with the town-class cruisers, there was occasionally a problem with their own naval aviation. So really, they also need to remind them as well. But there was a particular ally who occasionally got a little bomb happy. Just occasionally a little bomb happy. So what was the reason they went for the more equidistant gun layout of the KGV-4 turrets? KGV-4 turrets have so many problems I could do a whole video about them alone. In fact, I would actually consider that. I might see if Drac would join me and we could do a whole discussion on that one. Just the two of us talking about the KGV-4 turrets. Javier, is Supertown a flush deck design? Tony Fury, it's a Belfast with 6 to 12 months of time luxury. Pretty much. Money in 1640. What happened? World War II was coming. So basically, about January 1939, they decided to accelerate. And they go with the treble turrets. Ian Carr, could the quadruple turret be fitted to Crown colonies? Yes. I think they were built with the same ring as the Belfast and Edinburgh. Jeff Bieler, technically 20,000-ton cruiser counter battleship tonnage. Why were they considered rather than more fast battleships? Interesting enough, they do get through a sort of loophole in that the RN did have a negotiable loophole in that region. They were considered because they would get more numbers for their more ships for their bank, basically, and because if you're building an actual battleship or battle cruiser, it's got to be a lot bigger and a lot more heavily armored. Whereas this would get you more ships. So you must remember, this is in the period when the RN really is worried about its cruiser numbers. Above all else, it's prepared to sacrifice destroyer leaders to become cruisers. It's prepared to sacrifice heavy cruisers to become light cruisers. Is it really a surprise it's considering sacrificing its battleships for cruisers? Anyway. Hello, John Emmett. Hello, Texas. I will be back in a second. I've just been called to be checked with something. All good? Where was it? No, you didn't know more than me where it was, Karen. We were both looking on there. By gum. Sorted. Right. Okay. Hello, John Emmett. I haven't seen you in a while, but thank you for joining us. Jeff Bieler. Reading further, I see that HMS Vanguard was in fact a 15-inch gunned heavy cruiser. How correct is this? Yeah. As the Royal Navy treated her, yes. That is pretty much what she became, because the Royal Navy didn't have any other battleships, so she gets grouped in with the heavy cruisers. Andrew Bend. It's a good thing you're not Churchill. The cigars will not help the cough. To be honest, as I said, the cough comes on whenever I get a whiff of the heating, and I should probably open the window more, but there's lots of people outside, so I've sort of partially closed it. But we will hopefully sort out the cough. Libra in the street. So friendly fire is a problem at C2? Yes, it's always a problem. John Emmett, having done research on the treaty here, I noticed how most nations didn't want to pay for a larger navy. Without the freeze, how big do you see battleships getting in the 1920s? Well, there's always those people who start talking about 50, 60,000 ton battleships and all these things, but I don't see people paying for them. I wouldn't be surprised if battleships get to about 45,000 ton mark and stabilize there, especially while the democracies are in the lead. If you get the rise of dictatorships still, which you probably still would, then things could start going up. But I would say it would stabilize about the 45,000 ton mark. For a next generation cruiser, would you, from Dan Freeman, would you think of putting more 4-inch and 2-pounder pom poms on it? Do you really need all those 6-inch guns while they can't do AA? Maybe 3x6 gun, 3-gun or 4-gun turrets? Well, that's the thing. If you had built the Crown colonies, you still wanted 12 guns, you'd probably gone for 3 quadruple turrets from the get-go. And you'd have probably put in... Well, I'd almost wouldn't be surprised if you ended up getting some 5.25-inch turrets thrown in. So you could end up with 3 quadruple 6-inch turrets and 5 double 5.25-inch turrets. With 4 placed on wings and 1 placed in the X position above Y turret. But Donaldson, are you referring to HMS Sheffield? It was attacked by swordfish. Yes. Yeah. Oh, they very carefully didn't tell Toby which ship they attacked. What? Greg Stadowski, what kind of heating? We have a hot air heating system in this house. Dan Freeman, do not joke about being allergic to corgis. That's not nice. Besides, I like cuddling the corgi. And I cuddle the poodle as well. Pigeon, the fellow at the battleship New Jersey rated HMS Vanguard just below the Iowa class. Vanguard having some better features, including seakeeping, inferior only in firepower. So only if you consider the 16-inch gun less capable than the 15-inch gun. So, here is HMS Belfast, and here are her qualifications. She's 13,000 tons when she's fully loaded. She's got a length of 186.99 meters, or pretty much 187 meters. Near enough makes no difference. Now, to get from her to this, pretty much all you have to do is add on an extra 600 tons in terms of turret and ammunition, and an extra 4 6-inch guns. That is what they were originally planning for their super towns. But also, here's the point. And please listen when I say this. Belfast and Edinburgh are laid down in 1936. They are laid down in 1936. Notice their standard displacement? It's 10,500 tons. It's already over the 10,000 ton limit. Their standard displacement, their setup built in 1936. And they are planned to have those quadruple turrets. So they're planned to be 11,000 tons in 1936. What does that tell you about the RN's idea and the Admiralty and the British government in 1936's approach to the treaties? They don't think they're going to last. They think by the time these cruisers get in, it's not going to matter. And they're right, but hey. The Carter, have you tried a cool mist humidifier in the room to help the cough? It would help the cough, not help the books. And thank you for the suggestion. Hi, Frederica Vega. Hope the exams are going well. Nicole Ross, which was better, pom-poms or before 40mm? Pom-poms were 40mm, but pom-poms are rapid fire. Bofas are slightly longer range fire. Do I have to pick? I'd like both. Probably it probably is sensible to go for the Bofas. The Bofas probably are the sensible solution in the end. But there is part of me which does love the highest rate of fire of the pom-pom. Sim Richards. I was listening to the Bilge Pump Battlestar Galactica theme. Were you three gentlemen plugging for a modern Des Moines class cruiser for the RN? Not a Des Moines class cruiser. Stephen Cross. Sheffield getting attacked. Apparently ABC used every one of his extensive swears when he found out. Potentially. I know Tovey used quite a few when he eventually found out. Jeff Miller. I see one reason the UK does not build new 8-inch cruisers was fear of another 1920s arms race. Hilarious when you consider that the USN was already building AK Alaskas and Des Moines. Potentially, but also there is the fact that, okay, Britain will always publicly talk about the fear of an arms race, but there's also, as I said, this graph and what they were planning on doing. So you could say that the RN was talking a very different political game it was actually doing. Checking it. The Atlanta class are seagoing gun shops. Change my mind. Oh. That's what most AA cruisers are. Lots and lots of guns. Lots and lots of guns. John, I'm glad to hear your classes are done and your finals are graded. Evening, Thomas van der Velde. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. Bernard and Sunni. Belfast is now seen as the best town class of the war, but I don't think many people realise that she sat out 1940 to 42. As such, would she be the least experienced town during the war? I will not give away things I say during the long patrol, which will come out Sunday. Irradiated Salmonoid. Hello. First time catching this late. Oh, cool. Hello. Welcome. Very soon. As a follow-up to my last question, if Belfast is the most experienced town, then who was the most least experienced town? Then who was the most experienced town class of the war? It would come down to Birmingham, Newcastle, or Sheffield. It would be between those three. But it all depends on how you how you get it. That's right. Wow, stream has more than 100 viewers. So that first, I have no idea, but thank you. Welcome 100. I didn't realize I had that many. So, it's a light cruiser. The Neptune is the next one, and it's one of the last light cruisers which the RN considers doing. It's going to be 19,000 tons in deep load. Yep, 19,000 tons in deep load. 202 meters long. Yeah. 108,000 shaft horsepower. 4 Admiralty free drum boilers. Top Top speed 33 knots. Range of 7,500 nautical miles at 20 knots. Belt between 4 and 1.5 inches. Bulkheads 4 inches. Turrets 2 to 1 inch. Armament officially 12 6-inch guns in 4 treble mounts, but they also did consider quadruples again. 6 twin quick-firing Mark 4.5 4.5-inch guns. Basically, those are the guns which the Daring-class destroyers have post-World War II. And they have 3 pairs each. And the plan is for this cruiser to have basically the equivalent firepower of a Daring on either side. Oh, yeah, and also the torpedoes of a Daring on each side. So basically, imagine 2 Daring-class destroyers smashed together and given between 12 and 16, probably 16, 6-inch guns. And I feel I should give this some reference. The Alaska, fully loaded, is of course 34,000 tons. This fully loaded is 2/3 of an Alaska, roughly, when it actually built will probably be. So, this was a light cruiser. Yes, this was the light cruiser. Let's think about this again. It is supposedly a light cruiser, and it is 2/3 of that size of the ship on that bottom, which is itself roughly 2/3 of the ship above it, which of course a battleship. Just thought I'd put that in there for reference, and we can go back to considering what 2 Daring-class destroyers slammed together and 12 to 16 6-inch guns, which can do AA work, because these are the new ones, which can go up to 80 degrees. Yay! Would do to us anyone. If anyone's feeling mildly afraid of the Royal Navy getting this ship, I fully agree with you. I have a feeling if the Royal Navy had this, the Soviets would never build the Svodlov class. Jeff Hitter, was Vanguard faster than the unbuilt Lions in terms of economy? Building Hell was easier than new heavy cruiser design. Otherwise, crank out Crown Colonies is easier. Crown Colonies is the easiest, but yeah. Well, here's the thing. John South says 19,000-ton light cruiser. Who dug up Fisher? Guess which hull they used as the model for it? Oh, yes. The hull for HMS Courageous and Glorious. So that was the hull they were basing this on. Trent Lenko, were the twin 40mm Stag mounts? Yes. I sort of see Belfast as having to regretfully sit out the early war, but tags in late war to finish it for her sisters, who need refits and modernizations. Yeah. Jeff, to what extent do the light fleet carriers replace cruisers, especially in terms of fulfilling doctrinal requirements? I would say that's often used as a justification for replacing especially the larger cruisers. My goodness, this light cruiser has more power on the shafts than most nuclear submarines reactors generated, please. She is slightly powerful. Adam Finton, still unclear on definition of cruiser, destroyer leader, battle cruiser, somewhere in between with some range. It's something, alright. 471. Twins were planned to be busters. Bonifers universal staged tachymetric electric radar. Imagine a triaxially stabilized stag with its own on-mount diesel generator. I've heard that, but I always presume it's going to be stag because that was even more in trouble with development than the rest. So I usually say stag because, frankly, it's more likely to have been stag. But it could have been those as well. Dan Freeman, it is a Frankenstein's monster of two Darings and a town class melded together in some ungodly mass. It's interesting, definitely. Fair Libra, from the look, I prefer pom-poms. They have something mean. I agree. Ian Carr, Belfast was president of Thinking of Charnos Standida. Yes, she does. She gets a lot in. I'm not saying she isn't experienced. I'm saying compared to some of the others, she's less experienced. Kingsor, what if the RCN got a hold of one of these? Well, considering they had a couple of aircraft carriers at this point, if these had been built, I wouldn't be surprised if Australia and Canada would have both wanted some. And it would have been kind of interesting. John South, HMS reminding everyone that the Second Amendment was in the 1692 UK Bill of Rights first. Potentially. John Member, your love for this AA farm is frightening. Let's put it this way. They were worried about it keeping up with the aircraft carriers, honestly. That's good. Have you just publicised your happy place? Let's put it this way. If I could have go back in time and get some of these built for the Royal Navy, I think we'd have a very different Royal Navy to this day. Nicole Ross, how rapid fire were the 6-inch AA guns? They were able to get 10 rounds off a minute. Between 10 and 12 rounds a minute was their supposed to be, so I'm going for 10 as the conservative option, as I normally do. And they had proximity fuses and time fuses. They could alternate. And was it anti-aircraft which drove automated loading, thus more fire for a few barrels? To an extent, but also it was the manning crisis which was coming. In that, they knew they were going to lose a lot of manpower. Eric Ocon, imagine Neptune class participating in the Falklands. Well, that's the interesting thing. If these had been built, they'd have probably been commissioned about 1950. You'd probably still had a couple of them wandering around in the time of the Falklands because, unlike the Tigers, they would have been far easier to upgrade. They could well have lost their stern guns to helicopters as well, but you'd still had the front quadruple 6 inches. So, yeah, that would have been fun. John, are you a paramedic like Drac? Not quite the same as Drac, but I'm fairly there sometimes. Vision, how would the unbuilt Neptune cruiser affect the post-war RN? Or do they make it to the Falklands? Potentially, and they give it a lot of status for a lot of cost-effective status. Replacing would have been interesting. Now, this is the last one, and as I said, I'm not going to be doing a full length today. I was aiming for about 2 hours. I'm probably going to do a bit longer than 2 hours, but I do apologise. But again, it's just me saving my voice for tomorrow because I have to record the Christmas special for Bill Trumps tomorrow morning and then do a long drive. So it's going to be a fun day. I'm looking forward to it, though. I get to meet some very cool people at the end of it. So, Minotaurs. Now, here's the thing. There are many different variations around the Minotaurs. around what they would have been, around what they could have been. Most of them come down to having 5 turrets. This is a very, I would call it Yankee Doodle Dandy interpretation of the Minotaur class. And don't take this the wrong way. That probably sounds rude, but it's not meant to be rude. In that there is a certain type of historian and naval architect who I regularly have arguments with, who presume that the way the Americans do their ships is automatically the best way for everyone. When actually, I usually think it's the best way for the Americans and the way they fight and the way they're structuring it, not necessarily the best for the British. Example here, a classic example, is the 5.2, the guns and the forward, in that they have it low, low, high, instead of raising up 3 levels and having them all so they can all fire forward. I think the latter option would be far more likely to the British, but let's see what you're talking about. You're thinking about that. Thank you, Kingsrook. Right, let me get it. Where are you driving? The Manning crisis. It happens. Manning crisis often happens, especially after wars. 19 Minotaur, the Canada ship. This is the 47 one. I assume these are not Minotaurs that became HMCS Ontario. No. Minotaur is one of the most unluckiest names in the Royal Navy for actually being built. The first town class was supposed to be called HMS Minotaur. Doesn't happen. Then there's, well, she was actually a refuser, converted to a town class, and then it's called rename the town class. Then they do another Minotaur class, converted to HMCS Ontario, and then it's just terrible. Sorry. Here's the thing. There is a button on the back here. And when I moved round to move the mouse to turn that, to expand it, I must have hit the button. And I didn't realise I was muted till I spotted the orange line wasn't going across. Those 2 forward-mounted most turrets look problematic. As a rule, the British do not like a forward turret which cannot fire forward. They have a huge problem with the Nelson class. In fact, half the writings about Nelson and Romney are so annoyed with that 3rd turret being mounted back. And there is a lot of view which is basically any amount of weight necessary should have been done to build up the ship so that that gun could be mounted higher up. Janet, I can't take a closer look, but would it use the new 3-inch secondary battery? Yes, it would. The idea was the 3-inch would replace, but would have give it the rate of fire almost the 40mm, while giving it the range and hitting power of the 4.5-inch, 5.25-inch. But yeah, I'm not that keen on the 3-inch myself, but it works. It does work. Anna Flinton, why did the RN just not adopt 155mm once it became the NATO standard? Gunfire support versus land forces is dicey nowadays as a result. Well, basically we were attached to 4.5 and we have been for a long time. And yes, we were the only ones doing it, but it was the 4.5 was our gun. So we kept with it. Patriotism and inertia. Sorry about that losing thing. I'm still getting practice with this. I'd say I was watching a video on who was it? Which one of the people was it? It was one of my favorite channels, actually. I found a video. Yeah. Matt and Tom. If you don't know them, they are Tom Scott and I'm not sure who Matt is. But they're two people. They do a sort of series where they sit on a bench and they chat about things. And they were chatting about YouTube. And they were basically saying it takes about 2 years to get fully proficient with it and fully happy with your setup. And I have to admit, I've probably accelerated that by doing quite so many as I have done. And the unique environment that is COVID. But I do have to agree with them. And I do also agree that it is sort of your side project, but it's a fun side project to have. Kingsroot, didn't hear a thing you said whilst the monitor was full screen. Okay. Well, basically, what I was talking about while the monitor was full screen was, apart from the gun, I was also talking about the fact that the shaping World of Warships have chosen for it. I think the RN actual hull as it would have come out would have been longer. I think it would have been slightly narrower, and I think it would be slightly longer. And I have a reason for this. Because the RN, by the time it was considering the Minotaur class, in 1947, was really focused on speed, as in long-range cruising speed. And that is long, thin hull. That is a very sort of low beam to high length ratio. Effenhund, wouldn't raising the middle turret get better arcs of fire like an Arson's? It would have done. And I think if the RN had been going to pick either one of them, that would have probably been what they'd done. But I think also they'd have raised both. I'd think they'd already done the 3-step up with the Didos. It wouldn't have worried them too much doing it. They knew what went wrong with the Didos and how that had caused an issue, and they knew how to fix it. And also, these turrets were slightly lower height, so they would have literally raised it up enough so its guns just went over the top and just went over the top rather than fully above. If that makes sense. So I think you'd have had the equivalent of a half deck beneath the middle turret. Hmm. 471. Sketch of design Z4C and Design D appear in DK Brown's Rebuilding the Royal Navy and Norman Freeman's post-war naval revolution. Yes, they do. And to be honest, there are various ideas put forward in this one as well. The trouble for the British when it comes to getting cruisers post-war is a very, very simple issue. And I point out this one. I'm not sure if you can see it on the side. If I can do that. Yeah, you can sort of see it. I'm planning on getting a little sort of microscope setup that I can do this with at some point. It has 3 steps up. And I think that's what the British would have gone with. I don't think they would have had a scenario where you have one gun hidden by another. But the big problem for the RN post World War II in the late 1940s and 50s, and really into the 1960s, is this thing. It's the town class cruisers. They prove so easy to upgrade, so adaptable, so flexible, that you can accept that the Tigers are terrible and just use them. You can accept pretty much anything because they will do it. Every time the RN's going, do we really need any, we don't have much money. Do you want to put money in aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, or cruisers? Well, we can still eke out a bit more for the town class. We can still eke out the town class a bit longer. And they do really, really well. And that's the problem. And by the time that class is no longer available for service, the RN can't make the case for building more cruisers. It's into the guided missile cruiser age, and there is all sorts of debates over the size of ships and the size of the Royal Navy, and it's post-Suez. And the RN can't get the cruisers. So it's one of the really interesting things that probably the best cruiser the RN produces pre-World War II, and arguably the best cruiser design they produce, destroys the ability of them to produce better designs, because they have to make the case in all the funding scenarios for that. And it always has to be as, are we replacing these? Take care, Jenningoff. Turning 3434. I remember the time, the 0.5k subtime, with a considerably more interesting setup. I feel proud when I see the nicer mic setup. I'm very glad you do. I have to say, I'm very pleased with the nice mic setup as well. I do remember a slightly more interesting time as well, when I used to have PowerPoints were pieces of paper. Tom Final, it's a year of hard training to get through that matter. Got trained down to 3-6 months, but you risk going down the Luft. Oh, yeah. There's all sorts of issues going on in the world. Matt Gray is Matt Gray is Tom's audio guy and friend, amongst others. I know that he is a very cool friend. I do actually have to say, since I've only seen the park bench since we started doing bilge pumps. I just found the park bench. I know it's been going for around longer than that, but I didn't realize it. And it does remind me a bit of bilge pumps. They're chatting away. And I have to say, it would be sort of a YouTube-y thing to do, but it would be great to someday have a discussion with them on bilge pumps about technology and about technology and how civil and military technology works. Nutty Hyper 1. Was there a missile version of study in the 50s? There were all sorts of missile studies. The missile age is great for cruisers. I mean, really great for cruisers. Because you need some really, really big ships for some of the missiles, which they're looking at. And the evolution of cruiser into the through-deck cruiser is quite fun. Sam Thompson, hello Samuel. The RN 4.5 inch was like 3606 rifle caliber for the USA. Yeah. Turning people free, let alone 5-hour dry docks. They are fun ships. What book is it that you're holding up? Norman Freeman's British Cruisers. If in doubt, go for the really big book. Kingsrook. Citation needed, reverse trivia, or two of these people are lying? What was I talking about? Yes. Citation needed, reverse trivia, two of these people are lying. I think it was the benches. The park bench. There is. Take care, Janguf, and... Simon, I still find it funny that Swiftsure was replacing the service by Belfast. It's like the reverse of the "it's the future old man" meme. It's the town class become the swordfish of the ship of the cruiser world. They replace all their successors. Gone Eagle, why have you not uploaded our Refuser Class 4-4? I'm not sure why. I'm still tracking down the video. I know I recorded it, and I thought I uploaded it, but apparently it's disappeared from YouTube. So I now have to track it down in my backups. Bidrum, did the USA suffer similar from having too many World War II cruisers? No need to build more for 2 decades. Did size help? Yes. Yes, it did help the USN because they converted them to mostly missile ships. But there again, then they end up with the TICOs, and frankly, I don't think that helps them with a cruiser function. Bishop, Des Moines class refitted with rapid 8-inch guns forward and double Tartarian missiles out would have been cool. Ooh. John Emmett, I used Freeman's US Aircraft Carriers book for the seminar. So I presume it was this one then. I do have quite a lot of Freeman's books. I really have got to stop getting so many books. No, I won't. I've got a ton. It's like 4 random books. I've already got it recorded up to the end of March next year. I'm going to start recording again in January. Gone Eagle, I did answer that one on the Air Refuser. I uploaded it, but it disappeared. I'm not sure why, so I'm going to have a go at uploading it again. Kingsrook, sorry, I was asking which of the 3 of their comedy trivia shows have you watched and or prefer? I haven't watched any of them enough to say that. I've watched about 1 episode of each, and they're all quite fun, but I haven't had much time to watch more. I tend to watch the park bench, though, because I quite enjoy those. Naval, there's apparently a gigantic lag on my part. Often happens. I'm already off topic. Apologies, sir. Don't worry. Eamon, off topic, but could you argue that the Invincible class are a rebirth of the escort carrier concept? I would argue they are a rebirth of the cruiser carrier concept, which is the concept which, when stripped down to its cheapest point, gives the escort carrier. The cruiser carrier is what the RN are looking at in prior to World War II, which gives birth to HMS Unicorn as a forward fleet aviation ship and a cruiser carrier, and the light fleet carriers. The idea is you have just enough aircraft capability to do the job and to support the cruisers. Mm-hmm. I reckon, what should a cruiser design today be like? Again, I discussed this quite a lot in a long patrol that comes out on Sunday, so I'm going to leave that to then. And it is already nearly 8:45, so I'm going to finish this at roughly 8:45. I do apologize now, but as I said, I am saving myself a bit for tomorrow. Some kits would be interesting to see a town modified with 2 twin 6-inch quick-firing 4-inch replaced with 3 and nice big twin Terry missiles in place of White Art. Could be interesting. Probably they'd have had space for having the far bigger quick firing 6-inch, not the twin, but probably the triple quick firing one, which they were working on. Thomas Swordfish are the cruisers. Yeah, they're good shit. They're good aircraft. But they do outlast their successor, and their successor's successor. Sam Thompson, what does breaking the back of a steel hull? Not like a wooden keel from the age of kit sail. Literally, it does mean breaking the back. It means breaking breaking the hull. So literally, you do such damage to the keel, the main metal, the main keel which holds the ship together underneath. You break the keel beams, you literally do break the back of a ship, and it can, if it's not strong enough, do that under the water pressure and its own weight, or do that as well under water pressure. It depends how the explosion goes. HMS Belfast is very lucky because she does that. Notice how my hands go like that. She twists and stays together. The US blew up half their older ships during Operation Crossroads, remember? The huge underwater nuclear explosion? Yeah. John, I don't consider surviving Essex-class World War II survivors. Cold War, Vietnam, yes. World War II, no. They are mostly built after World War II. That's when they end the service. Vision. French battleships with 2 forward quad mounts would have worked well for post-war missile conversions, using the secondary arm and hangar space at the stern. Yeah. Golden Eagle, I'd agree with you. The Ticonderogas are essentially next block Spruance-class DDGs. Yes, some cool cruisers just for the hell of it. Engrogan, could the towns have been converted for use as missile ships? Yes. They would have probably replaced X and Y turret for missiles. Ben Grogan, was it purely machinery fatigue why we lost them? Pretty much. Machinery fatigue and the cost of refitting them. Sam Tottenham, do you have a wish list of books we could send you? No, I haven't got a wish list of books. I have. The reason I have that is I don't have a wish list is honestly because most of the books I'm saving my money and collecting are things like these, which I have to track down on eBay. So this is why I have a patron and I have the lovely super chats and all these things, and all that money then goes on the books which are procured. Or at the moment, quite a lot of money is being saved for the shelving, which is going to have to go up in my new office because that is going to have to be quite extensive and quite expensive. It's going to be custom, so I can get the most out of space. I'm building it myself. At least that's the current plan. Unless I get deluged with work in January and February when it's supposed to come in which case I will probably end up having to buy a whole load of IKEA Billy-back bookshelves, but I don't want to do that because I want to build it properly and make sure I have space on my railway. I want a model railway going around bookshelves. I always wanted that, to have a model railway which goes up and down the bookshelves in sort of N gauge. And that's what I'm planning on doing. And have a sort of helix so the railway can go up and go around, and have another helix so it can go down to the main area and that sort of thing. Right. Let's answer these questions, and then I will finish for the evening. Right. Naval Ross, it's 1:45 p.m. lol. Lucky you. For me, it is 10 to 9. Steel hull ships also have kills, so it's a similar principle. Yeah. John Emmett, USN looking at doing escort carriers to use 6-inch gun cruiser tonnage after London trade was a waste of steel, only 10,000 tons. Easy targets enemy destroyers. Yeah. There's a nice argument going on about building cruisers. Let's point out that some cruisers could be useful for both the USN and the Royal Navy right now. Don Fritz, I'd love to see what a missile cruiser version of the Alaska would look like. A lot of missiles. That one. Plus, TICO was built around the radar and contributor system. Pretty much. The hull was already taken off the shelf, and then the rest of the structure was built around the radars. Nicole Ross, when is the UK version of your book supposed to come out? They're all supposed to come out worldwide in March next year. Buccaneer, off topic. Thanks for the session. Quite fascinating. Recough, I would put it down to your hot air heating drying out your mucus. Yes, I would do as well, because for some reason, when I walk outside the door, I stop coughing. And if I leave my window open, I don't cough. But if I have to close the window because I'm doing this and there are people having just a small shouting match outside, apparently in the street. I think one of my neighbours is having a problem with her boyfriend. And according to the WhatsApp message I've just received from their dad, I'm not needed to go and help him at the moment, but he would like me to. I wanted to check I was awake. We have there's a standing neighbourhood watch in my area. We just go and have a conversation not too far away if we worry about the boys. Anyway, Jeff Beeler, given post-World War II mutinies, when did habitability become more of a design priority? About 1950. There's your answer as to what they did with their old ships. Ooh, yes, nuke them. And Aaron Evans. Hello, Aaron. The tour of your completed bookshelves is going to be epic. Yes, well, if I can build them myself, I might well take a research week off and build them and do some sort of, I don't know, time, the sort of the montage where it takes a picture every while. Thanks, Osprey28. Hello. How you doing? So that you can sort of see them getting built. Donna Fitz, would it be so possible to take the hull non-complete Alaska, Puerto Rico, and convert it to missiles? That would have been quite possible. Vision, model railway bookshelf. Wicked cool. It is going to be cool. If I get to build it. That's the plan. Build that. That's basically the whole reason I'm building it myself, because there is no model railway bookshelf you can buy off anyone. You have to build it yourself. So, and I have the skills thanks to my dad and my grandfather, so I can do it. Not as good as they could, but I can do it okay enough that it'll look nice. Right, Wesley Phillips. Agree, would like a tour of model railway bookshelves when finished. There will be a tour. I might even, if I can find appropriate camera somewhere, to give you a train's eye tour of it. Although finding a suitable camera for a N-gauge railway is a bit difficult sometimes. Can you recommend any books on Churchill's speeches? I have a book of Churchill's speeches somewhere around me. I cannot find it at the moment, but it is in the collection of books. Never Again. Never Give In. Never Give In is the book. Never Give In. And it was put together by his grandson, and it's really, really good. So Never Give In is Winston Churchill's speeches. That's the good one. Alex Miller, hey Doc. Do you have Zoom? I'd like to show you what I've got so far from my modern battle class. If you have a few minutes. I usually use Skype, and occasionally I chat over Discord. And I would say if you send me a chat on Discord next week, because I have a very busy weekend coming up, I will try and arrange that, and then we can have a chat, and that'd be quite cool. Then, do you happen to be in the middle of trying out one of Drax's suits of Medieval and be carrying a nice shield and mace combo? Not at the moment, but potentially coming on to some point. I usually just go and smile, and these days I get to wear face masks while doing it, so I can look really menacing because I have a very cool. I team this, which was a present from my girlfriend, with a black face mask, and you look really quite menacing, and then you're standing on the street chatting with about 3 coppers, and they're sort of it just gives the presence. Take care, John Annette. Thank you. Take care, Tony Free. Is bilge pump subject, but is the US actually considering the limit of the Fords and starting building smaller carriers? We can hope. Then if Alex enabled, he could take the fluffy research assistant. And yeah, sometimes the fluffy research assistant comes along, and the Tafra could well do as well. But he's a little small. Take care, Jeff Beeler, and Ryan. Take care, everyone. Take care, DM Carter. Thank you, Google Rook. Golden Eagle. Thank you, King's Rook. Thank you, Dunrick Ironhammer and Code Fate. Glad you like the beanie. It's a very cool one. Sam Thompson, wouldn't a Tau missile zip right through a battleship's main armor? Probably would. But the real thing is, the reason I talk about cruisers these days is because you need that size for something. I know. Take care, everyone. It is literally 5 to 9, and I do have to go. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Take care, Natty Hyper 1, Constant Drowsiness, Donald Fritz, DGV 40, Weeb Extraordinaire, Osprey 28, thank you. Eric Arkin, thank you. Some Kits, thank you. Derp Squad, thank you. Melanie 16040, thank you. Code Fate, Sitting 190, thank you. Thomas Vanderveld, thank you. Greg Sawski, thank you. Eric Arkin, thank you. Turning 3434, thank you. And take care, everyone, basically. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you, Dan Freeman. Thank you, Zachary Gherkin. Thank you. Take care. Thank you, JSB. Take care. And enjoy Sunday's Long Patrol. It's going to be a really good one. It's 7 parts on the Town class. It's pretty much 4 hours of video I've managed to record this week. I hope you will love it. It does go for everything. So, thank you very much. And take care. Samuel Thompson, thank you. Donald Fritz, thank you. Confidential 1207, thank you. Nicole Ross, thank you. Eamon, thank you. Take care. And Dan Freeman, thank you. And Keelan19, thank you. Thank you, Alex Miller, as well. And Shomack, thank you.